You are now listening to The Unwavering, the movement dedicated to educating and empowering the brave men and women who have or are still serving our great nation. What's up, everyone? This is Kevin with another episode of The Unwavering. Before we get started, I would like to say a big thank you to all of the active service members and those of you who have already served. I have a lot of friends who are still currently on active duty and still out there serving, still deployed away from their family and friends. So those of you guys listening, hey, thank you very much for your sacrifice. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to my co-host, Dan, and let him introduce himself.
Hey guys, I'm Dan. I spent 5 years in the United States Navy, 4 of those on a submarine. And I've been out for about 2 years now, and today's topic is the GI Bill and tuition assistance, any form of getting education while in the military or once you're out of it. And this is a huge benefit that a lot of us going into the military actually join for. We either can't pay for school, we don't have that sort of resource when we're joining the military, or once we get out of the military and we've learned all these really valuable skills that we're going to use for jobs or whatever, we get into the job force and we say, you know, I could really hit the next level in my career if I had a degree, associate's, bachelor's, master's. You think when I joined, they told me, you get the GI Bill, we'll pay for your school, we'll pay for not just the tuition, but a lot of times your books, sometimes your housing. And so it's really a great thing to take advantage of. And currently I actually am.
Before you go on, I'm glad that you do have some knowledge on the GI Bill because I haven't tapped into it just yet. I have used tuition assistance, but I think it's super important for those of you guys who like to continue to educate yourselves and want to do something either within your field or even outside of your field. Getting that education paid for is huge because I have some friends who didn't join the military when I did directly out of high school. They went straight to college, which is great. Like, I'm not knocking that, but when I talk to them now and I'm like, hey, you know, how are things going? Maybe they do have a job, maybe they don't have a job, but for those that do, they have a job that is dedicated to paying off those student loans. And for me, I'm 27. I did 8 years in the military. I got out with absolutely zero debt. Yeah, exactly. So I am in a very fortunate position where now everything that I make for my current job, I get to use however I want.
And I want to say that it's not necessarily college. You can use your GI Bill for getting your CDL. You can use it for a trade school.
What's a CDL?
That's the truck driving thing.
Oh, certified, what is that?
Driver's license.
Okay.
Yeah, to be able to drive a truck, you have to have a certain license. And you have to go through courses. You can use a GI Bill for any sort of education. You want to learn how to fly a plane? They have flight schools, and you can go and get your pilot's license, and the GI Bill will pay for it.
Did you know that sometimes you don't even have to tap into your GI Bill for those? Like vocational schools, nursing, technician schools, things like that. There's actually a separate program, which we'll get into in a later episode, but I just want to touch on it since you mentioned it. You can actually utilize different funds that are allocated from the military for vocational schools. Then once you finish your vocational school, you can actually utilize your GI Bill on top of that. They're two completely separate things. Tapping into one doesn't necessarily mean it's taking away from the other. So that's just one good thing for you to remember. And I definitely want to bring a good friend of mine onto the show later because he actually taught me something that I did not know about some of those vocational schools. And one of them was when he was applying to a vocational school to become a technician, they required for him to not only have his study materials, but they required for him to have a complete toolbox, which was going to total in about $10,000. So we're talking like, you know, super expensive snap-on tools and things like that. At the time, he didn't have $10,000 to invest in his education, let alone in a toolbox, you know what I mean? But he was able to get connected with the right people, and they said, hey, because you're utilizing the vocational program, we'll go ahead and pay for the toolbox, all the tools, because it is directly related to your education. Now, there's a few stipulations to utilizing that, and again, that'll be a later episode, but there's so many different programs out there that you can utilize to get an education, so I'm glad you brought that up.
And I want to be clear, when we say GI Bill, we're meaning educational benefits. There are actually 2 different programs that you can use for college tuition. You have the post 9/11 and you have the GI Bill, and they're very separate and they do separate things.
Post 9/11, that's actually what I fall under. Yeah. I just am used to saying the GI Bill, so my fault, and thank you for bringing that up.
So like that's what I'm using. I'm using the post 9/11. They actually pay me about $100, $200 a month for school supplies. They pay me, I want to say $900 a month, and then they pay my tuition directly to the school. I don't ever see that money. I don't have to deal with that. It's taken care of. Now with the GI Bill, I believe, they actually pay you an amount of money, and then you have to use that money to pay the school. So a little bit difference there, and I think the amounts are a little bit different, and how they go about the business is a bit different. But there are two separate options, and I know for the GI Bill, you actually have to buy into it. When I was in boot camp, you were given the option to pay, I think, $1,000, and that like vested you into the GI Bill. I had my bachelor's degree already. I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm not giving you $1,000. Heck off. I can use the 9/11 if I want to. And actually, that's working out great for me. But a lot of people bought into it, and now they have this extra option. Maybe the GI Bill would have been better. I don't have that option now, which I regret a little bit, but it would have been nice to have that option.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you think about it, in comparison to your friends who didn't join the military, I mean, you having this benefit available to you puts you years ahead of them. Because like I said, my friends now, they're working a job not to collect a paycheck. They're working a job to pay off debt, which in my mind, it's ridiculous, right?
You consistently see politicians discussing the topic of student loans. So we have to pay off everybody's student loans. If they went to college, they got screwed over for paying for their education. And they're like, the government should pay for your education. And it does. Join the military.
Yeah.
It pays for your education.
Yeah, definitely.
People are looking, in my opinion, for a free handout. And the handout's there. You just got to earn it.
Yeah, I mean, serve one enlistment, maybe two, maybe more, and you won't have to worry about student debt. Now, it depends what you want to do and, you know, what your ambitions, what your goals are. But for me, much like yourself, joining the military and having that benefit available to me is incredible. And for some of my friends who joined and were married, them being able to pass that over to their spouse or their children is just an incredible benefit that they wouldn't have gotten if they didn't join the military.
That's exactly what my brother is doing. He was in the Air Force during Desert Storm. He has 4 daughters. He never used his education benefits. Now that his daughters are all around 18, now they're 21 to 15 maybe, and it's like if they want to go to school, he can transfer it to one of his daughters, or I think you can split it between. Yep. But before we really get too much into like applying for the GI Bill or the post 9/11 and getting into it, I want to talk a little bit about your options while you're still in the military and getting ready to get out of the military. So there's this thing called tuition assistance, and I don't have as much experience with it as Kevin does. I never did any school while I was in the military, but I do want to say a couple words about it. In the Navy, I'm not sure how the Army, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard are, but I had pretty limited options with the schools I could attend. And when I went to the meetings to try to learn a little bit more about tuition assistance, I would look at the schools and there was like University of Oklahoma University College or something. You read it and you're like, is this made up? Like, is anybody gonna like give a crap that I went to this school that nobody's ever heard of? Is this gonna help me at all? And I kind of had the mindset like, this isn't worth my time. And now that I have given it some more thought, I could have taken a course in biology or in calculus. And then once I got these courses, a lot of times those schools that they use are certified. You can transfer those credits to like your big name colleges. You can go to, I mean, our local like UCLA, USC or whatever, and they're going to accept those credits. And on your diploma, it's going to say USC or UCLA or whatever. It's not going to say he took 1 semester for calculus at University of nobody ever heard of. It makes sense if they're paying for it, and in my case, stuck down on a submarine working all the time, but I also have time where I'm sitting there reading like Game of Thrones or something. I could have been taking a course and progressing my future. And then once I get out of the military, now I have 1 less course to take, and that's 1 less semester, and 1 semester earlier that I can get into the workforce and actually start earning more money.
And you bringing that up, that's really good that you said that, because again, this is another benefit that's completely separate from your GI Bill or your post 9/11. Tuition assistance is for people serving on active duty. I know there are some cases where reservists can utilize it too, but I don't have too much experience with that, so I won't really dive into that. If you guys have questions, I will definitely do the research and get you the answers. But from my experience, utilizing the tuition assistance while you're in is an incredible benefit. What I did, like you said, I went to a school that probably not too many people outside of the military or the Texas area have heard of. I went to Central Texas Community College, knocked out all of my gen ed classes, and And then once I finished all of that, I ended up transferring to Penn State, going through their online course. The reason why I chose Penn State was because of all the other schools that I was looking at, they offered the most benefit. They were willing to accept more credits from Central Texas than anyone else. They waived my fee because I was an active duty service member. My courses were actually cheaper, which means they weren't tapping into as much of my tuition assistance as possible. I didn't have to take an SAT. So for me, there were just so many incentives working in my benefit that it was too hard to pass up. So I got to go to a pretty good named school, and it was all paid for through the military. Everything was covered. When I got out 8 years later, I had zero debt. So it was huge for me. And I'll go ahead and kind of walk you guys through the steps real quick of how to get started and how to utilize it. Again, this is what we want to share with you guys. I know a lot of our episodes thus far have been dedicated towards, veterans and stuff, but for those of you guys on active duty, there's definitely benefits that you can take advantage of and some that we'll tap into. First thing you want to do, and again, this is going to be something that we cover over multiple episodes because actually doing research on this, I only had the perspective of utilizing tuition assistance from the Marine Corps. As I was doing research to talk about it on the podcast, I learned that each branch is completely different. They have different things that they're willing to pay for. They have different amounts they're willing to pay service members, different amounts of credits you can reach per semester. So there's different stipulations depending on your branch, but I'll just try and kind of break it down into a general understanding of how to get started and how to go ahead and begin working this process. First thing, do your research. Find a school that is going to benefit you and accept as many credits as possible, because a lot of these schools will accept some of your military background and give you credits for that. When I went to Central Texas, they accepted right off the bat 35 credits.
Right. When I separated from the Navy, they printed me out this sheet. It said, okay, you went to this school for calibration. That's good for how many ever credit hours. And at the end of it, it's like, okay, you have 30, 40 credits just from the military, just from doing my job. That should realistically be applied to any sort of education.
Like you said, it's just for doing your job. This has nothing to do with you going out to college. You joined the military, you did 4 years, you did 8 years, whatever. Hey, here's 35, 40 credits, completely free. You give those transcripts to your school and they'll tell you, okay, we'll accept this many. Another school may offer you more, maybe less. So it's up to you guys to do the research. So number one, do the research, find a school that is in line with what you want in the future. If you're looking for a big name school and you want to go to the Wharton School of Business, you have to start doing the research now and setting yourself up. Number two, you have to be within good standing of your command, because you have to remember that tuition assistance is something that has to be earned.
It's like up a privilege.
It's a privilege. Thank you. It is something that your command has to authorize you. So if you're one of those people who drags your feet at work, isn't doing your job, odds are they're not going to approve you. And it's going to suck once you realize that your friends got out and they've got a bachelor degree or whatever degree they got completely free by utilizing TA, and you didn't get to utilize TA because you weren't within good standing with your command. So make sure you inform your command, make sure they're on top of it, and you have their approval moving forward. Next is complete your required training. Now, again, depending on what branch you go through, they're going to have different requirements. I know for me, when I was going to get tuition assistance in the Marine Corps, I had to take a class on finances. I had to take another one on entering college and had to be within good standings. And there was a certain amount on my ASVAB GT I had to score in order for me to be accepted and begin college classes. So if you don't have that GT score, it's not a problem. Just study. Go ahead and take the test. You can take it on base, completely free to you, but make sure you guys are taking the time to learn what the requirements are. And if you don't know, ask those questions. Once you've done all of that, you want to go ahead and start speaking to the counselors at that specific school. Ask them those questions. I'm currently on active duty. If I go to your school, what incentives are there available for me? How much credit hours will you give me for my service in the military? Do you guys offer any discounts to active duty service members? How do I transfer my tuition assistance form to your bursar or collections office so they can get me attached to the school? So make sure you're connecting with those people. Each school should have a military veteran advocate counselor, and they are incredible. Mine literally did did all of the legwork for me. He was like, hey, Kevin.
Oh, it's their job.
I mean, it's their job, but at the same time, like they're dealing with thousands of students a year. So he went out of his way to say, hey, Kevin, I need these forms from you. I remember there was one time that I was having issues with them receiving the documentation from my TA office. He made phone calls. They're there to answer your questions and make the process of you getting an education as simple as possible.
And
so take advantage of it.
they know what to do. Chances are you're not going to be dealing with one of these guys and then be like, well, maybe you have to hand in this for it. No, they deal with hundreds of students who are in the military and they're like, okay, you need this, 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 and this. They're not going to waste your time. This is their job. This is what they do. They know how to help you in this situation.
Yeah. And most of them are veterans themselves. So them being able to pay it forward is huge for them. And that's why I think they care more than other counselors because they've been through some of those struggles.
They get it.
They get it. They know what it's like to be on deployment and be working 14, 16-hour shifts while pursuing an education. So they're more than willing to go out of their way to help you. So take advantage of it. Ask them as many questions as you have, and I promise you that they will do whatever it takes to get you an education and get you signed up with their school. So next, the final step, and if I'm missing something and you guys are like, hey, you missed an important step, please let me know. I have no problem with that.
We'll add it in.
Yeah, we'll add it in, but this is about us taking care of each other and making sure that we pass this knowledge on.
We're by no means experts. We've dipped our toes in it a little bit, but there's no way we've dealt with every situation here. I mean, we can only speak from our experiences. So if you guys have had a different experience, please let us know.
Yeah, definitely. As I was saying, the next step is going to be go online, and depending on what branch you're in, there's going to be a certain link, a certain website, which I'll provide in the description portion of this episode. You'll click on that link and there's going to be a web TA form that you're going to have to fill out. Once you fill that out, you're going to send it to your education office on base, and you will need the approval of one of the officers from your command. The education office will be able to answer all those questions. Once you submit that form, you say, hey, next semester, I want to take these specific courses at this specific school. Here's the address. Here's this information. They will go ahead and approve it. As soon as they approve it, you're going to go ahead and scan it, email it to the education office at your school, and they will do the rest of the work for you. That's kind of breaking it down as simplistic as possible. Again, depending on your branch, it could be a little bit different. There could be things that I'm missing. So if there are things that we're missing, please let us know and please share it with the other listeners.
Yeah, so if you want to transfer a little bit now into once you get out of the military, how to go about using your GI Bill or Post 911. I got out of the military and had no intention of going back to school. I just kind of wanted to be a hippie for a while. Then I got a job. Every day I would come home from work, I would hang out, and I just got into a rut and I was like, this is no good. Like I'm not progressing. Like, okay, I'm making okay money, but I can make more money and I'm not doing anything to do that. So
can I ask you a question real quick? So at this time, sorry for interrupting. At this time, you had already had your bachelor's degree, right?
Yep. I got my bachelor's actually before joining the military, and so when I was enlisted, I was tricked.
Oh, they got you, huh?
Yeah, they got me.
You could have gone to the dark side and been an officer.
I could have been an officer. I could think my GPA was a little bit lower. At least that's what they told me. I'm sure I could have gotten a waiver, or if I spoke to the right person, it would have been okay. I kind of slacked off in my undergrad. I took classes like poetry and decided that poetry would never help me in life, and I still hold that stance. Except for my rap career, that's helped a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
But so I slacked off and my GPA wasn't great. So that actually has come back now to haunt me one time as well. So yeah, I had my bachelor's degree and decided I wanted to go ahead and get my master's in the military. I was on a submarine. I did a lot of their navigation work, and I used geographic information systems to do that. If you don't really know what that is, it's dealing a lot with maps, building maps, and using like data on maps to kind of tell a story. And so I had a lot of experience with this, and I thought, I could get a master's degree in this pretty easily. It could go hand in hand with my undergrad, which is marine science. I don't care about whales or dolphins, but I do like coastal circulation and like the water cycle. That stuff is okay to me. So
like underwater drones, like ROVs and things like that.
Yeah, and any sort of like spatial intelligence type stuff I could transfer into really well, just because of my Navy background, working with all the navigation equipment, and also my marine science background. So I decided, a master's degree in GIS could really help me. So I started looking around at different schools, and I'm working full time, so online is my best option in this case. And I know before I started going to school online, my thought process is online school is no good. It's like, are you even going to school? Is anyone going to take this serious? And I have to say that my experience with going to school online has been a real eye-opener. It's as much, if not more work than going in person, and it suits my style of learning a lot better, where I can sit down, I can read the material, I can watch a lecture, and I can watch it again with the beer in my hand, and then, okay, now I get it. So, I mean, it suits me instead of having to say, okay, it's 8 o'clock, I need to wake up now, and I need to go into school and sit here, and I'm not awake yet, I didn't have my coffee, and I'm not paying attention. Like, that doesn't work that well for me, and I think that's a lot of the reasons my GPA as an undergrad was below 3.0. I think it was like 2.9, maybe 1.9. Anyways, so I think I got a bit on a tangent here, but like I was saying, online school really works out well for me, and at the end of the day, on my diploma, it's going to say University of Arizona. It's not going to say University of Arizona Online. It's not going to say this guy didn't really ever show up to Tucson, Arizona, which I haven't. It's going to say I completed the requirements for the University of Arizona to have a master's degree in GIS if I make it there. So the process. I started looking into schools. I started looking at different programs, and I originally settled on the University of Washington. This is a kind of funny story. I applied. Everything was going great. I got accepted to the program. I got the email. I was pumped. A week after the email saying I got accepted to the program, I got an email that said, the program has been discontinued. We're not accepting any more students. Sorry to put you back like a whole year or semester, but we're not going to teach you anything. And so I'm like sitting there going, okay, what the hell?
So did you tap into your GI Bill to do that? Like, did they?
No.
Oh, okay.
To be clear, you don't use them until you're actually accepted into the school. There might be cases where you can use it to pay for your application fees. I'm not sure. I know I did not, but there might be certain circumstances. So anyways, I did that, and then I tried to be cool like Kevin and go to Penn State, and so I applied for their GIS program. It's probably okay, and they actually said, you're about a week too late applying. Sorry, we'll throw your application in next semester. And so I'm like, okay, what are my options? I really want to get going. I'm sitting here doing nothing. I need to occupy my time and start feeling like I'm progressing in life. So I found the University of Arizona, and I looked at their course structure, and I was like, you know what, this actually is better than anything I've looked at. This makes sense for me. It's one course at a time to a semester, but they're stacked one after another. And so I can easily go to work full time and get the education I want. So I applied to that, and they were super helpful. I used the veteran assistants at the school. They led me through everything. They're like, you don't need to do
SATs, GREs.
They said, we don't need you to do that.
ACTs, yeah.
They said, okay, your undergrad GPA is a bit low. What we're going to do is we're going to accept you into the program as a non-degree seeking student. And then once you prove over 2 semesters that you can do a 3.0 or better, we'll no problem accept you into the program. So I'm like, sweet, this sounds like a pretty good opportunity. So I accepted to University of Arizona, did my first semester there. It was great. I got 4.0. Still I'm holding a 4.0 after 2 semesters now, 4 classes. And then I would say at the end of my first semester, I got an email from Penn State that says, we see you applied. Your GPA wasn't that great. Sorry, we're not going to accept you. And I'm sitting here looking at this like, are you kidding me? I'm already in a GIS program at like an equal school. Actually, if you look at the rankings, University of Arizona and Penn State, I think are pretty much neck and neck. And so I'm like, I got 4.0. Like, you guys don't think I can do this at your school? Like, I don't want to go to Penn State anyways. So I got accepted to University of Arizona to backtrack a little bit. And I said, okay, now I got to figure out this whole education benefit thing. So there's a couple resources online. If you just go to like your e-benefits, it will direct you to the right websites. You essentially fill out a couple paper forms and stuff, some paperwork, and they pretty much hold your hand through it. I ended up calling the VA for the education benefits to try to understand a little bit more about it. And they were actually really helpful. They said, yeah, if you go to school online, we're going to pay your tuition. Doesn't matter if you're in state or out of state. I'm going to University of Arizona. They're in Tucson. I'm in Los Angeles, different state. They still pay it. Not a problem. One thing that you have to look at is the amount of time that you served. I believe if you served more than 3 years in active duty, you get full education benefits. If you served less than that in active duty or reserves, you get a portion of it. And it really depends. It's like a case-by-case basis on how much that you actually served and your status of serving. And so I called up. They said, yeah, you get it all. Fill out the paperwork online. Short while later, I got a confirmation that said, yep, 100%. And what that entitled me to was 36 months of education benefit where they'll pay my tuition. They'll pay me a housing allowance. They'll pay me for my books or related expenses there, calculator or something, I guess. They will not pay for your beers at the parties. I found that out the hard way. Submit your receipts. They don't accept them.
Not even an IOU, huh?
Not an IOU. That's
terrible.
Anyways, So there's a lot of differences in how much you're going to get paid. It varies state by state if you're going actually physically in person to the classes. It varies by how many credits that you're taking each semester. Like I said, I'm taking 2 courses, which I think equates to 6 credits. And that entitles me, I believe, in my case, to the full benefit. And it also depends on schools. If the school says 6 credits is full-time, you get full-time rate. Now I'm going online, so I get a national standard rate. I think they take the average of the United States.
Yeah.
Your housing.
Yeah, it's like $800 or $900.
Yeah,
right?
I get about $900.
Yeah. Again, I just want to chime in real quick. You guys still need to do the research, or if you guys have specific questions, ask us and we'll do the research for you.
Yeah, in most cases, you can actually call the VA. They'll walk you through it. They're really good. They do this every day, and they can help you out. Really simple. So I got accepted. I got approved for full benefits. My next step was pretty much to tell the school I have been approved for full benefits, and I went on their admin page. It's like a student center page, I think most colleges call it. I just checked the box that the military would be paying my tuition, and it was literally 6 steps where I said it's 9/11 bill plus 9/11. I said I'll be like full benefits, and that was pretty much it. I waited a little while. The VA sent me something in the mail. They said you're using your benefits this amount for this amount of time. It's getting you this many credits. You still have this many remaining, and I never had to worry about it. One thing that I did find out kind of, not really the hard way, but kind of surprised me, is I have to apply through my school every semester for these benefits. My first semester, I did it. I thought, okay, my entire time at this school, I don't have to do anything. And then I kept getting letters in the mail that said I owed like $5,000 to the University of Arizona. I'm like, nah, this is the military. They should be paying for this. I thought maybe like they ran out of money. The government, they're having a hard time constantly like paying the government employees and stuff, furloughs and everything. And it's a mess. But no, they would pay for my school. I just had to go back in and go through the 6 steps. It says post 9/11 bill, 100%, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, I actually did it late. I was like halfway through my semester, and I went in and I did this, and like immediately the mail stopped coming. They no longer were sending me nasty red letters that said I had to pay them money and they were going to kick me out. The military was pretty prompt with it, and yeah, they've been paying it, and they've been paying me, which I really appreciate.
That's awesome, because like I said, you were smart in the fact that you already came into the military with a degree, but for many of us, myself included, I went into the military directly out of high school. So I never went to college. I didn't get my degree. For me, being able to go in and not have to put that stress on my family or myself about having to pay off loans or take out credit that I would be paying for the next 30, 40 years is a nice thing to know. Like, I don't have that stress in my life. I did my time in the military, and because of it, there's certain benefits that I can now take advantage of. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And again, like for you guys listening, maybe you think, college isn't for you, and you may very well be right, but maybe another program is, maybe the vocational programs for becoming a nurse or becoming a technician on aircraft, whatever it is.
Just knowing you have the benefit available is valuable, and knowing that you can transfer it to your significant other or children.
Yes, but I do want to say something about that, because there are certain stipulations to that. So myself, since I did not elect during my reenlistment to give my education benefit to anyone else, which I mean, I don't have
no one
a
loves
wife.
you.
Exactly, no one loves me. Thank you. I don't have a wife and I don't have children, so I didn't elect to give that education benefit to someone else. But usually, if you reenlist or you come into the military and you essentially like negotiate for that in your contract, those are going to be the only times. Just because you served in the military, did 4 years and got out, if you didn't elect and were never promised on paper, if you don't have anything written saying that you can legally transfer it to a significant other, to a child, that's not available to you. So I don't want you guys to think that you got out and you can automatically transfer it to your wife or to your children, because that may not be true.
That might be branch by branch as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you guys out there know that applies to your branch, please let us know, because that's new news to me. I had no idea. I know for the Marine Corps, it was, if you reenlist, make sure you tell them that you want to transfer it, and you can transfer, like, I want to utilize 50% of the benefit for me, 50% for my wife, or 50 for my wife, 50 for my son, my daughter, whoever.
There's always boxes to check,
right,
hoops to jump through. There's this restriction and this stipulation, and so it's going to be different for a lot of different people.
Yeah, but as long as you ask those questions now and start at least formulating some sort of plan or talking talking to people who've been through it, it's going to make it a lot easier.
Yeah, and with education benefits, there's a ton to talk about. It's way more than we could possibly get in one episode here. But hopefully that gave you a pretty solid rundown of some different steps and maybe a little bit of encouragement on to look into different forms of education. I know before I joined the military, I got my bachelor's, I was a shithead. I got out of the military, a little bit less of a shithead. I like to think, maybe a shithead in different ways now. But I am much better at school. I am, okay, I have a job to do. It really put me in a mindset. So I'm really excelling. So even if like you tried to go to school before you joined the military and you're just like, it wasn't for me, a couple of years, 4, 5 years, and getting your ass beat in the military, it can really change your mindset and really instill some value into you for education. So definitely give it some thought and consideration.
Yeah, that's true. Before we go ahead and leave you guys, I just want to acknowledge what he just said in the fact that you don't have to utilize these benefits as soon as you get out of the military. You can wait, 5 years, 6 years until you feel like, you know what, now is the point in my life where I want to utilize those education benefits.
Be careful. There sometimes is expiration dates on them.
Right. There definitely are. But yeah, I know that at the minimum you can wait like 5 years. That's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, I did 1.5. And I mean, that's a short time, but still no problems. I didn't have to do it right away. I didn't have to tell the Navy as I was like getting out that I was intending on going to school. Just apply through the VA when you feel like it.
Exactly. All right, guys. Well, thank you again for joining us. Hopefully you guys took something away from what Dan brought to the table regarding the 9/11 bill. For those of you guys who are active duty, I hope that the bit of information that I passed about tuition assistance was helpful. If you guys, again, have any questions, anything for us, or an experience that you went through in regards to education that you think would be beneficial for the listeners, please bring it up and we'd love to share it. Thanks for listening to The Unwavering. Please rate and comment on Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star and a great comment, and we may just read it on a future episode. Also, follow us on social platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Be sure to check back with us next week.